Sup, everyone? This is Elijah with the Rideshare Guy. So between Uber Eats, DoorDash, and the deceased Postmates, unfortunately, I have over 5,000 deliveries under my belt. And that's why I'm going to have an interesting perspective into what we're doing in this video. In this video, we're actually going to be doing a reaction to another video that came out recently. So on the Matt Walsh show, there's an episode titled Governor Kristi Noem is offended by my horrible misogyny, episode 784. And towards the end of that episode, there's a little section that is called Vengeful DoorDash Driver is Canceled. And we're going to actually be reacting. Well, I'll be reacting to that portion in the show. And we're going to see exactly what he said, what are my thoughts on it. And we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section. So I've not seen this yet, so I'm very intrigued to see how this is going to go. So let's go ahead and pull it up.
Today for our cancellation, we have a fun twist on an old story. A DoorDash delivery driver who goes by the handle French Fry Thug online recently recorded a video where he claims
Creative name.
that he had gotten a little bit of revenge on a customer who didn't tip him. Here it is.
This video is for Amy. Amy, I just delivered your food. Hi.
Oh my
I left you a note with your food. It says, "Dear Amy, if you can't afford to tip, then you should go pick it up yourself. Who do you think you are to order food and have someone come and bring it to your door for free? For free? I just drove my personal car to your house to deliver your food for fun? Nah, not today. You can write your wrongs below. Venmo, I forgot to tip. Amy, no hard feelings. You just can't have people bring you your food for free, okay? This is a learning lesson for everyone, all right?"
So we're used to hearing stories where a waiter or delivery driver claims that a customer left them a nasty note. But in this case, the delivery driver claims that he left the nasty note. Now, as we saw even just last week, the nasty note stories are almost always hoaxes. And I say almost only to leave open the slight possibility that there's been a real incident at some point this century, though if there was a real one, I don't think we ever heard about it. What about this one, though? Well, here again, he's saying that he left the note. Can't we trust that? I mean, would he lie about leaving his own note? Would someone really be so starved for attention and also so much of a passive-aggressive coward that they would pretend to have left a note that they didn't really leave? Would they? Is it possible? Well, as it turns out, the answer to all those questions is yes. The driver typed out that letter, printed it, but never actually gave it to the customer. So I think we could probably declare now, first of all, at this point, that all notes or letters left for or by waiters or delivery drivers or anyone associated with the food industry, they're all fake, all of them. There is something about people in the restaurant business that compels them, as if by some unseen mystical force, to write fake notes. I don't know what it is. If you're in the restaurant industry, maybe you could tell me. What's going on exactly with you people? Why do you keep doing this? I can't explain it, and this guy doesn't really explain it.
Okay, I'm not justifying what this driver did, but I just kind of answering like his question. It's just my opinion. I think a lot of people just want to express themselves without repercussions. So they're bringing light to a problem, but don't want to directly like make it known because they're scared that something's going to happen. This isn't the right way to deal with it, keep in mind, but it is just pointing out that maybe something's a problem.
Himself. Here's the New York Post. They say, quote, a DoorDash delivery man who went viral last week for leaving a passive-aggressive note for a habitual non-tipper now says that the stunt never happened. Quote, Amy is real. She's a real habitual non-tipper, but I didn't leave the note at Amy's house. He posted on Saturday, 4 days after he shared a now unavailable video claiming to have left the note along with the female customer's order. A subsequent video showed French Fry Thug supposedly distributing the money that he said he received from strangers on Venmo to fellow underpaid DoorDashers. Well, there you go. He included his Venmo in the fake note, and the strangers, online for mysterious reasons, were once again eager to send him money. There are charities and nonprofits out there that work with actual poor people and sick people, and yet struggle to raise funds. Meanwhile, any random dummy with a phone can rake in hundreds or thousands of dollars with the lamest sob story. Children's cancer research probably gets less funding than whiny waiters and delivery drivers on TikTok at this point. It's quite a sad state of affairs. But what about this issue of tipping DoorDash drivers? Let's look at the larger and more serious issue. And this is a serious issue, we're told. DoorDash drivers actually just went on strike for a whole day a few weeks ago. Among their demands were a higher base pay. Right now, they make between $2 and $10 per delivery as a base. And they want to know they want to know the tip amount from a delivery before delivering it. Because when you order on DoorDash, you're expected to pay the tip beforehand. But apparently DoorDash doesn't tell the drivers what the full amount is until they've completed the order. And the drivers insist that they should know the tip ahead of time and then be able to decide if they want to complete the order or not based on that.
Yeah, I just want to interject. It's just all about having the full details of the situation before you actually get involved in it. And since we're independent contractors, the full payout that we're going to receive for delivering that food is a big variable in determining if we're actually going to do it or not. So if anyone's watching and they're a customer or just someone else, I want y'all to just think about it from that perspective. That as it stands, like DoorDash, they show like your tip, the final amount could be higher or the total tip could be higher. And it's kind of like playing Russian roulette as to, hey, maybe it's higher or maybe it's not. And imagine doing a delivery where you kind of speculated it was higher, but it ends up just being what they showed you. You kind of mentally calculated that into the equation. So it's like, oh, was that delivery really worth it? I wouldn't have took it if I knew it was going to be for that price on screen. This is why I tell drivers, don't speculate. Make a decision based on the information in front of you, because worst case scenario, you'll be getting paid that. If you get paid something extra, that's a bonus, but don't speculate and expect like, hey, maybe the customer tip more and I'm just not seeing it, because you're setting yourself up to get disappointed in some circumstances.
Now, of course, this is all backwards. I can tell you right now, I say unapologetically, I tip very little, or most of the time not at all, when I order from a food delivery service, Uber Eats, DoorDash. Sorry, guys, I'm not tipping you. And for one thing, because I'm not going to tip you before you've completed the task that I am tipping you for. The tip is supposed to be in response to and calibrated based on the quality of the service provided. How can I reward you for the quality of your service before you performed it? And what happens when, as has happened to me in the past before I adopted this new policy, what happens when I leave a generous tip and then the driver takes their merry time bringing the food to me cold and soggy and absconding with the tip that I already gave them? But the other issue is that DoorDash and Uber Eats both charge delivery fees along with other taxes and service fees. What that means is that I'm already paying $65 for a hamburger and French fries, and now you want me to add an additional tip on top of it? There are limits to my generosity or to my capacity for financial mismanagement, however you want to look at it. But there are two other factors at work here as well, which are a little bit broader and larger.
Okay, before we go on, I just want to comment on what he said. So as a customer and as a driver, I see where he's coming from. But if you're going to adopt that stance, customers should be putting more pressure on these companies to pay drivers more if you're not going to personally tip ahead of time. So there's basically a trade-off. What he's saying is valid, but keep in mind that if you don't tip, we're just going to make a decision based on what we see. And that means that your order could be floating out there for quite some time. And I've actually seen situations where like no driver took an order and it just ended up getting canceled. And those situations were when the customer didn't tip or they tipped very little. So as someone who's a customer and a driver, you got to understand if you choose not to tip, there's a chance that your food is going to come extremely later. And if you want your food to come in a semi-timely manner, then you got to put that tip on there to incentivize someone to take it. If you don't complain if it comes like 2 hours later, because that order is floating out there. No driver's going to take an order for $2 or $3 in a lot of cases. So that's just the trade-off. I just want to say that.
The first is the rather new idea that tipping is an act of unconditional charity, where we're expected to perform for people in the service industry. And as tipping has turned into a form of financial assistance, a sort of endowment that we're supposed to bequeath on people, it's also expanded exponentially. Now you're expected to walk through life handing out tips to anyone who wears a name tag or works a cash register or hands you food in a plastic bag. It's completely out of control. Social convention had already determined who gets tipped and who doesn't. And I don't see any reason to change any of that. Yeah, it might have been relatively arbitrary in some cases. We don't tip our plumbers, for example, even though a good case could be made for them. But you have to draw the line somewhere, and it's been drawn. More importantly, I'm supposed to tip based on the quality of the service that was provided to me, not on the level of my own personal guilt or on the victimhood resume of the service worker that I'm dealing with. It's not my job as the customer to make sure that you're paid a fair wage. I actually
semi-agree with them. even though I say the customers have an influence on that because they can tip, I'm grateful for customers that do tip a lot, but I do feel like these companies should just increase the base pay. Like a few weeks ago, I did a DoorDash delivery, and it was for $11.25, and I look at who's paying what after you complete the delivery, and I saw like the customer tipped like $8, and like DoorDash only gave 3. I'm like, wow. Like all I really care about is the end result. So if I can make like 15, $20 an hour consistently, I'm cool. How I get that, I don't really care. I did feel that maybe DoorDash should be paying more of that and customers shouldn't have to subsidize so much. But until something changes, we're going to be looking for those tips to make the wage off of. And if nothing's going to change, then you're dealing with the scenario that I just talked about.
News for you. You have to work that out with your employer. So when you hear from people in the service industry, well, I'm not paid a fair wage, that's why you got to tip. No, that's not I'm not your employer. I don't decide what your wage is. How did that become my issue all of a sudden? See, I was at an airport recently and I heard 2 pilots complaining about their insufficient compensation. They were in the terminal. They were just sitting there talking about it. They were overworked and underpaid, apparently, from what they were saying, which disturbed me greatly, I have to say. And maybe their compensation is insufficient. I don't know. But it would have been pretty strange and rather concerning if they were in the plane and they left the cockpit and walked down the aisle with a tip jar, expecting the passengers to cover the difference. The passengers are already paying for the flight. They've done their part. The rest is not their concern and shouldn't be. The second factor is this idea that every job should provide a living wage, right? DoorDash drivers are upset that they aren't paid enough. They demand that their customers make up for it, even if the customer's already paying $29 in additional fees for a $12 bag of fast food tacos. But how much should a DoorDash driver really expect to make anyway? You're simply taking a bag of food from one location to another. It's something that literally anyone with a driver's license could do. And even a lot of people without a driver's license could probably do it. And probably do, in fact, do it. $2 to $10 plus a few bucks for tip per delivery seems pretty fair for that menial task. In fact, it seems surprisingly high, if anything. How much do you want if that's not enough? $20 per delivery? $40? Should you pull down an astronaut's salary for picking up someone's Kung Pao chicken at Panda Express and driving it 8 miles to their apartment? I mean, how much is the labor actually worth? That's the question that we are always losing sight of. How much is this labor actually worth? How much could it possibly be worth? People are already paying a premium just so they don't have to put on pants and drive to Panda Express themselves. But there are limits to our laziness. And you make that premium much higher than it already is, and we'll probably just choose the pants instead. Not every job is meant to be a career. Not every job is supposed to be something that you can live off of. I mean, DoorDash driving? Some jobs are meant for teenagers who live at home or people who are looking to make a bit of extra cash on the side. If you're running DoorDash orders as your main source of income, you probably should find another main source of income.
Okay, what he says here, I actually agree with them to a certain extent. Because like if you compare like firefighters, paramedics, people like that, I wouldn't say that, quote unquote, delivery drivers should be making on par with something like that. So I get where he's coming from. But I want to ask him or anyone that has this kind of ideology, like, would you take a delivery that's $2 or $3? Because this is the reality that's floating around out there right now. I mean, it all circles back to like if there's a minimum amount that a driver can expect to make per delivery. And if that can be established somehow, I think things will just even out. Because as it stands, you have customers that, hey, you see these $10, $12 orders and the customer's tipping a lot of that. So that's great. But you also have these $2 or $3 orders that are floating around out there. And which ones you're going to get is just seemingly completely random. So some days it may average out for you, some days it won't. One thing that could just balance the marketplace is just having the fair base pay so that the driver is going to make, let's say, at least $6 or $7 per delivery. So that reasonably a person can slide 2, maybe 3 deliveries in an hour, and they stay between the range of like $11 to $20 an hour. And most people would be happy with that if it just stuck like that. The way it's set up, you got too many of these $2, $3 orders floating around, and drivers just aren't incentivized to take that.
And the good news is that there's 10 million jobs out there, so you shouldn't have any trouble finding it.
I also want to say that I agree with them on like this gig work isn't supposed to be a career path. It should be doing some part time to make extra money, or if you're doing it full time, it's kind of keeping you afloat while you find your career path. Starting a business, getting a skill set, freelancing, looking for a job in your field. Like it should be a path towards your real game plan and not the game plan itself. So I agree with them there. Okay, bringing it back on me here. I mean, overall, drivers, we want to make consistent amount of money that's reasonable, and that can be done by these $2 to $3 orders going away. Okay. And as it stands, we're looking for the customers to make up that difference because they're the only ones that can. But if DoorDash does increase the base pay, we would generally expect less from the customers. We just want to be able to make like consistently between like $11 and $20 an hour. And keep in mind that's a big range. But there is some strategies that you can implement with the delivery algorithms to make that happen to get on the higher side. But when you have these $2, $3 orders floating around, and there's too many of them, there's only so much you can do. You're gonna go under $11, and drivers are gonna be upset. So I agree with a lot of what he is saying, but some of the stuff he is saying, he doesn't have the right perspective, and that's why these reaction videos are very insightful, so people can really get the right perspective that us drivers are coming from. A lot of people don't actually realize that when they're not tipping, that delivery comes out and it's like $2. I'm not even exaggerating. I literally mean $2 freaking. Who is gonna take that? And eventually DoorDash will start to bump that up to like $5, $6. But when they do that, that order's been floating around for like 90 minutes. And when a driver does go and get it and bring it to you, that food's gonna be soggy. The scenario is kind of set up to where someone's gonna lose. And in the future, I'm really hoping that maybe a more win-win solution for everyone can be kind of set up for drivers, for customers, and for these companies, in this case, DoorDash. I feel like there is some kind of win-win scenario that can be set up, but it takes us highlighting that issue for us to have that discussion so we can come up with it. But that's the reaction video to this. If you have any questions or comments, I'm pretty sure y'all have plenty of comments. Let's hear them below. And don't forget to subscribe if you're new and hit that bell notification so you can be notified when we come out with another video. This has been Elijah with the Rideshare Guy. Be safe, be profitable. If you want to sign up for DoorDash, you can do so using the link in the description. See you later.